All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Chat from the Deep, our weekly live streamed post-session discussion. We talk about what happened during D&D. This is the chat for session 3.0. So if you haven't watched that session, please do that because there will be spoilers. I'm your DM, Eric, and joining me, we have Gottwald's player, Chris. Another two-person, one-player chat program. We're still in this dungeon. We're still in this quest arc, but we are nearing the end of it, I promise. It's been a very, very long one. It's the going into it, I did not know this would be the longest one of the campaign so far. I probably should have guessed, given the size of this place. But
I say, yeah, with it being such a big dungeon, and it feels like you are sort of ushering us past some of it.
Well, I'm very curious to see your thoughts on this session particularly, because or like how you thought what was going to happen and what ended up unfolding, because this was probably the one where I changed things the most.
How did it start?
So we started with the temple, and I teased the fact that the Lizard Queen could somehow kind of communicate with her people.
Oh, yeah.
And sort of have that information.
We're not quite sure what she's doing with them right now, but she's doing something with them.
Yeah. And she knows the layout, and even she's like, we should probably get out and regroup and fight another day. But ultimately, you guys are in charge of the party. So if you wanted to say, like, no, we want to go attack the leadership, then that's something they would have to follow you to do that. And I was technically prepared for that. I assumed you weren't going to do that because of the just low resources you're all at. Also missing
Right.
Mac this week kind of, I think, would put a damper on any of those plans as well. So I was prepared for both, but I was assuming you guys were just going to kind of cut and run, which thankfully you did kind of hit most of the big things in here. The temple was the one thing where I was like, I really hope they do the temple. So we did that, and now I'm like, all right, now I'm okay with you guys just kind of getting out of here.
Yeah, which we didn't do is like the leader of the Srog and fight them.
Yep.
But again, it's like you said, it's like
I can talk about that a little bit maybe on the next chat, because we'll be able to kind of go through the full dungeon a little bit more. I don't want to quite do that yet, but yeah, there was a whole scenario for that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the dungeon, that was just those giant barracks rooms full of guys. Like, they're just
guys everywhere.
Guys everywhere. Yeah, it's kind of a slog, but it's also designed to be that way. Not meant to be like kicking down the doors and everything. But what I tried to create was that feeling of like, all right, it starts off, you're very stealthy, you're kind of infiltrating to assassinate, and by the end of the heist, like, all bets are off, and you're literally being chased by like the whole dungeon trying to escape out of here.
Mm-hmm.
That first level, so I did throw a patrol at you, but I kind of teased the fact that, like, hey, if you guys want to try to just get out of this, you can. Although initiative kind of fucked you up on that, because they ended up closing in pretty quickly.
Yeah, at least one of them.
Right, but Tora was able to effectively use Hunger Fadar to really stave off the majority of the encounter. I think you guys only actually took out one Sahuagin in that encounter.
We took out one. The Hunger Fadar held off
another one. One of them just ran on its own.
Sacrificed her zombies to take out the shark.
Yep. Yeah, so that was my tease, which is like, all right, there should be a patrol hitting them at some point. They're starting to actively follow the players, and especially with that fight not being fully resolved, that's what really sets off like, oh shit, now we've got active people that are like, hey, reinforcements are being called. Which is why once that happens, like, there is no short resting at this point. Like, even like a 5-minute short rest is out of the question once those reinforcements start coming.
It wasn't even a time to ask for it. Like, we were kind of in one thing and then into the next thing.
Which was definitely the idea here. So, and I knew going up the stairs, you would immediately get in another fight. By the way, I reduced all of the enemies' stuff. Even before I knew Raymond wasn't going to be here, I was reducing it. That's how fucking dense and painful this dungeon is. Yeah. Like, pretty much ever since that one barracks fight you guys did where I didn't reduce the numbers and the enemies, and I should have. I think the one you weren't here for was a brutal long, like, session-long combat encounter. I started trimming the fat out of all of this stuff. And that was another one where I very much, like, reduced a lot of the enemy numbers and tried to make it a little bit easier. On the other hand, you guys have a lot of allies, so that kind of helped balance things
it does
a little bit in your favor. But Yeah, so you had the one battle up there, but I tried to make it like, okay, you're fighting this fight, but like immediately the reinforcements are coming. Like you have no chance of, resting or regrouping, and not much for plan making. Although I respected you guys were trying to come up with some way of like, okay, can we like collapse the thing? And I'm thinking in the back of my head, like, if they had more time, yes, but I'm really not going to give you a lot of time to start flinging, whatever things you have.
It's Baldur's Gate 3, but I swore somebody had a wall of stone scrolls somewhere. But I think it's our Baldur's Gate 3.
I think you might be thinking of Baldur's Gate 3 when we used Wall of Stone really effectively in that one fight.
Yeah, that would have been great.
Yeah. And I fully expected, I didn't quite think of Gust of Wind, but I did expect of something like Hunger of Hadar. Basically, you guys to use some kind of spell that would help slow things down. So in the back of my head, I didn't have it mechanically set, but I was like, okay, that's going to effectively like negate at least a full round of the Sahuagin even having a chance of like attacking you guys.
Yeah.
During this chase sequence. The other thing I wanted to do was a chase thing because I wanted to evoke that tension, that cinematic of action stuff, but not being in combat for the millionth fucking time.
Yeah.
In this scenario, and this first level,
if you throw us in combat, we're gonna stay put and fight. Right. Like that becomes the tricky part.
It gets really hard. Yeah, and we even saw that happen in the patrol fight where you're like, okay, I want to go, but nobody's going, so I need to go back and fight. It gets really awkward, and I just keep having to throw guys at you. Which is why I was like, all right, I'm not going to actually even do a combat. It's going to be like we're entering chase mode now.
Yeah.
Which the DMG has chase rules. Folks talked to me about chase rules during the crafting stream. I'm very curious to get your feedback on the chase system that I cobbled together to try and make it somewhat exciting and have some very loosey-goose rules about how to make it interesting without being in like pure combat, but still have interactivity from the players.
Yeah. I thought it was great. We're just talking about X-Men, and we're talking about
X-Men 97.
It was great. But one of my critiques was that them pulling the Phoenix out of their ass, and it's like, oh yeah, Phoenix is here, and she solves a problem, and then she's gone. I hate that shit. But so I think the reason the chase worked for me in terms of you not letting us be like, what do you call it? Turn-based combat, and you sort of turning that into like, okay, no, you guys are running from all these guys, and here's what's happening. Is the fact that you would set this up from the very beginning. As soon as we walked in this place, you had been like almost constantly telling us like, there's a shit ton of Sahuagin in here.
Yeah.
Like there's more Sahuagin in this place than you can conceivably fight. So we like for the last 3-4 weeks have known that like, okay, we can't fight every Sahuagin in this dungeon.
Yeah.
So because of that, after the last fight, you're describing like, oh, you hear sounds coming from up the hallway, and we know there's a bunch of guys behind us. I think that for me, at least personally, is what sold that chase sequence. Was that like, okay, like it's a known fact that this place is full of Sahuagin.
Yeah. And
so now this chase is predicated on the fact that there's more Sahuagin than we would want to stop and fight. Because, I think if you I don't know. It's tricky because even if you describe like, oh, there's a dozen Sahuagin behind you, some folks might go like, all right, well, I turn around and I cast Fireball and and let's go. Let's fucking go. You know what I mean?
Let's fight.
Like,
yeah. Yeah, you're right. I didn't think about that part of it, but yes, I did explain early on. That's like there's hundreds here. Like and occasionally, like when Mac would like open a room, I was like, "Hey, there's a dozen people in here." Like, nope, I'm walking out of here.
Yeah.
So I guess it was more earned, where it's like, "Hey, there is literally a countable horde of enemies following you," which has and one issue I had is there's no real precedent for this exact scenario in really any of our campaign. I think we've had like cutscene chases happen before where it's like, oh, there's an overwhelming odds of enemies, you got to get out, and we kind of paint a cutscene. But I don't think we've done like a mechanical. Well, I take it back. And I think Genocider pointed this out before in Tomb when you guys were being hunted by the predator thing. You guys did escape from that, but I don't think we had like that was more of a combat escape. I don't know if it was a chase sequence where we had like you're in chase mode basically, and you're the quarry. You're not the pursuers.
Right, yeah.
So that's what I was like. All right, I don't like the chase rules from the DMG.
I don't know what they are.
And the chase it's basically like, hey, everybody dashes. You can do a number of dashes equal to your con check and
Oh,
equal
yeah.
to whatever your con thing is, and then once you reach that out, you start to make exhaustion saves. And then there's a chase. There's two chase complication tables. They're d20s. Everybody rolls it, each individual person, but you have a 50% chance of nothing happening. And there's an urban one and a wilderness one, and neither of them really apply to this situation.
Oh yeah, it's like there's not a dungeon one.
There's not a dungeon one, right?
Yeah.
So I took inspiration from the Neverwinter like attack tables that I made, because you guys mentioned really liking those in terms of like, oh, it's cool to like roll on this, like, oh, what chaotic thing is happening that affects this round. And I'm thinking, okay, well, that's our chase complication every round, which I debated on whether to even put you guys in initiative, and I think it worked out better that I didn't, because that gives, I think
it did too.
it makes it go faster.
Yeah.
Is to just create those complications, which I was really happy we ended up rolling on each individual one. Literally the first 4, I only had 5 rounds, and the first 4, all of them were at different ones. I was like, yay, this is fantastic. And there was no like nothing happens one. I want to definitely make sure something happened each time.
Oh, right. Okay.
So that was that was cool that went off pretty well. And then
I think it went great. I really enjoyed it.
It was so funny with the 90 returns. I just like, oh no, the dreaded 90 returns.
that was the most affecting one of all of them. Was the 90 returns.
I did pull that one is from one of the complications from the DMG, I think. I forget if it was Wilderness or I guess it was an urban one, because you could like go to an alleyway or something. I was like, there's a sharp turn, you have to make like some check or bump into the wall and take 1d4 bludgeoning damage. It's like, all right, well, I'm going to scale all of these numbers up and make it a lot more interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was so really first time running a big chase sequence.
So the whole time we were doing it though, I'll say like what's going through my head is like, what is the DM going to do if one of us actually goes down? Because I was getting close.
Yeah.
But like, what do you do? Like, how does that going to mechanically work? Like, I figured if somebody else went down, Gottwall would probably just try to grab, like, just carry them, right? Yeah. Like that seems logical.
I think I never honestly have a full plan for that. I think because my plan is very spur of the moment. I think my plan would be that's when one of your NPCs, probably Borges, comes through and basically would probably have to like sacrifice themselves.
Oh no.
Like they rush in, they like revive you with their action, they block the whole thing, and then you crawl away while they like just jump into the horde and do a heroic sacrifice thing. And like that's your penalty for going down, right? Because you're right,
that would be a very good penalty. After everything that Borges did in this dungeon, like losing him because one of us went down would be that would be a pretty good penalty.
Because you're right. That I mean, or I could play it like severe and be like, oh no, they're down. But it feels weird the rest of the players just running and like, oh no, one of our like dear friends is just gone down and overtaken by the horde. And the weird thing is, this is a situation where technically they take prisoners, but like you guys are fucking done with this dungeon. You're getting out of there. Right. We don't want to split the party, so it would be an odd like. I'd probably have to just kill him off, but in the heat of the moment, I would probably do the heroic sacrifice from an ally, because I have a lot of NPC allies that I could use for that.
Yeah.
And then I definitely wanted exhaustion to be a factor, and I tried to balance it where I was like, all right, maybe starting on round 3, everybody starts having to make exhaustion con saves to really ratchet up the tension. And realizing that first one, which thank you for reminding me, was disadvantage on all your checks. I'm like, ooh,
the first
suddenly.
One's so bad. The first
right, because it's weird. Like if you're in battle, like it almost doesn't matter. But suddenly, if you're in a situation where you're constantly making skill checks, it's real fucking bad.
Yep.
So that did get pretty exciting. I think we only had everybody fail that first DC and suffer it, and then we did 2 more times, and I don't think anybody suffered exhaustion after that. So, although exhaustion's bad for sure.
It's very bad, yep.
But because of your remembering, we lost one.
Yes, yeah. How did you change Mac's story? Because the whole Splinter thing, I assume you had to remove. But was Splinter just part of, or not Splinter? Sliver.
Master Sliver.
Was he just part of the prisoners on the level that we encountered?
That's exactly what it was. Yeah, he was going to be part of the prisoner group, and he would have been just... instead of the lizard folk queen talking to the lizard folk, getting information from them, it would have been having a conversation, an RP moment between Mac and that NPC, and that NPC would have had the more information in terms of like, hey, there's this route we can take that's safer, and just have some more dialogue for Mac. I guess it's the thing like, oh, in Baldur's Gate, I didn't take the right NPC with me, so I don't have the extra like
access to any of this
extra
stuff,
dialogue scenes that I would normally get. Yeah, but in this case, I thought like, okay, well, this is a fun way to do it. I can just have everybody, they're probably going to short rest, have Mac disappear and have him already go after, selfishly perhaps, that NPC's been trying to rescue. And then when they make it up there, he's already gone through there and he ended up going a different direction. So, and thankfully the dungeon's big enough where I can do that fun thing where you guys round the corner, make it to the entrance, and then you also see Mac there as well. So I can try to bake his missing personness into the actual canon story.
Nice. Yep. He went into his side quest by himself.
And thankfully he gave me enough of a heads up where I could do that, for example. Otherwise, if somebody, if we're like the day of, he's like, oh, I can't make it, then I'm like, oh, well, I just disappear and I don't have a good story to come up with it. But
yeah, right.
Definitely helps for sure. But the other reason I did the chase thing,
and be like, we don't know where Mac is, but I'm
right.
He's
like, oh, he's not here. That originally was my plan. I was like, oh, and I was like, no, I'm not going to do this NPC if he's not here. They're just going to be gone.
Right.
This first level is such a bad. I guess it's realistic in terms of how the Swaggin are handling it, but for a dungeon design, it's horrifying. It's 19 rooms, and like 16 of them are empty, completely empty. And only like 3 or 4 of the rooms have actual enemies in them or anything to interact with.
That is so weird.
Because they're all like, it's just being like built out or something. Otherwise, it's an empty room. But unfortunately, it's like gigantic. It's not fun to run through. So I'm looking at this map going like, gosh, I really don't even want to use this map. And I thought, oh, here's a way to montage them literally through the map. We can do a non-combat chase sequence. And then they will effectively teleport from one end to the other. I actually mapped it initially during a crafting stream. You would have to run, if you ran that length where there are no enemies, 700 feet. Which, if you're dashing every round, would take you 12 rounds, I believe, to go 700 feet. And so I'm thinking, well, I definitely don't want to do 12 rounds of a chase sequence. So I'm just going to come up with my own bullshit number. So I settled on 5. So essentially you guys were running literally twice as much as you can. How boring
would that be? 12 rounds of just I dash and I dash. And
right. And you could make the argument like, okay, well, if we're not in combat, we can, then movement becomes different maybe. Like, we're sprinting. We're not like running and with weapons drawn. So I just said, okay, maybe they're literally moving twice as fast. Hence maybe why you have to make athletics checks and why you're crashing into walls. You're just moving at sprinting breakneck speed.
No, I think this is a much better solution. I thought that the whole chase sequence thing was very fun.
Good. I thought it worked really well for pacing because, like I said, we had so much back-to-back giant battles where I'm like, and I know I'm gonna have to start with battles in this session because there were some more fights, but I was looking forward to like doing that chase sequence, and I think I've got a good handle on what works for this group. In terms of like skill challenge versus combat versus open-ended, hey, what do you want to do versus, oh, what about a structured, okay, now roll on this, like spin the wheel of the wheel of chaos penalties. And the spinning wheel seems to really work well for this group, and I honestly find a lot of joy from crafting those kind of complication tables. So I think I'm gonna remember that going forward for sure. And the plan is you guys couldn't quite exit the dungeon with that one chase sequence, but now we're in a really interesting scenario where I'm forcing you to stop and kind of fight and escape again while a horde is behind you.
Right.
So you're going to be in a situation where like, okay, we're technically going to be in combat, but we really don't want to hang around and fight any more than we want to.
Still. Yeah. Which that's always tricky because like I said, like players tend to want to be like, okay, well, there's a fight to be had. It's in my face. I'm going to stand here and fight it.
Right. And you still have a horde of prisoners around you they're trying to keep alive as well. So it's going to be on you guys to get out of here, but it's going to end up being, this is the 7th.
I've got 5 hit points.
This was you've really gotten through the ringer on this one. That's impressive. All the hit dice, 5 hit points left. Like, damn.
Yep.
How many sessions on a long rest so far? I was just saying, this is the 7th session of this quest arc, which is definitely, I believe, a record for any individual quest arc or level we've been on.
Yeah.
I think longest before was maybe 5 or 6. And we're going to have to go one more, right? We're going to at least go one more to finish it out. So it'll be 8 total sessions to get through it.
Jeez.
Which is a lot.
It's a big place.
It's
The
a
Lizard Folk Caves.
It's a big fucking place, yeah. I already had courtesy of patron and fan of the show Bear Gardner for providing the awesome maps, but this is from Ghosts of Saltmarsh, so these dungeon maps were already designed. So I went with them, but now looking at them, I'm like, gosh, this was a bit of a mess to traverse because it's just so freaking big.
Like
old
what
school
the
maps.
Intention of these old school maps is, because like is the intention that a DM is gonna take it and do their own thing and put things in these empty spaces? Because I
think the intention was we're not. I mean, obviously, virtual tabletop wasn't a thing. Technically, you could use minis on the map, but I don't know if they were much of a thing either. I think it was more like this was the DM reference.
60-foot hallway, and you don't actually.
And also, I think they used 10 feet versus 5 feet, so technically the dungeon probably felt half as big.
Right.
But the thing that kills me is still the density of just the content. Like it just feels it's either completely empty or like on level 2, it's like every room is just full of dudes.
Yeah.
And the main quest normally is just to do reconnaissance. Like don't even fight or have any objectives. So it's very bizarre. So what I changed was like, all right, here's some specific objectives you have. And then adding, I guess that one chase sequence was basically the only bit that I had to really add in there. And then eliminate a lot of the enemy because it was way too much fighting.
Right, yeah.
But you guys have survived so far.
So far.
5 hit points left.
Yeah.
All right, anything else about session 30?
I should just start drinking some potions. We'll see what this fight's going to be like, but yeah.
You got to survive a little bit longer. Hopefully we'll get Mac back, and that'll help. The Mac is back.
Exactly.
That'll help give you a push. You've still got a bunch of allies, but yeah, you literally have a screaming horde behind you, and it's like you guys constantly have to be moving forward and dealing with things.
Yep.
No mercy. No mercy, because I have NPC allies I can sacrifice and make you feel bad.
Oh no, we don't want that. But that is a really good compromise. Like, okay, there are going to be consequences if you fuck this up, but it's not going to be like game-ending consequences, like a player dying. It's going to be like you're going to lose like NPCs that you're
it probably should be. I really should have that on the table where like players should die, and I don't know how would you feel if Gottwald had to die here? Like you were like so dead, you like sacrificed yourself to like stop the horde and let your allies escape here. Would you feel unsatisfied, or would that be?
Good question.
Yeah, it's a tricky thing. I mean, I'm hardly ever a player, so I don't have these conflicts very often. I know as a DM, obviously, I don't want to kill players off, but it also feels
the problem is
weird
that
to do kids gloves.
I know you too well, and you like are always trying to give us an out, like even when it's the most dire situation. You know, like I don't know if you, I don't know, like when the one actual experience we have with this is Rochelle's character dying.
Yeah.
But you happened to have a sentient tree or whatever it was.
Mushroom, yeah.
The mushroom, yeah.
Spoilers for Rhyme.
Turn her into a zombie that we could then save. But I don't know if you would have gone through with it if that hadn't been there. If you'd have been just like, well, Rochelle,
I would have, because in that situation, you guys were split up and she was rolling death saves. Like that was just a thing that happened. Yeah, it just happened to be that she. Now the other thing you could have done is you could have taken her body and tried to go to the nearest resurrection, but in that particular campaign, you couldn't do it till like 8 sessions later. So
right.
Would she have like taken over as NPC or done something else? Because that's the thing, is as long as you can recover the body, you can probably revive somebody when you get to the end of the quest thing. So, but the thing is, can you? Or is it a moment in a cinematic glory where it's like you're going to get overtaken, your body's lost, and this is the end of your story?
I don't think I would mind it being on the table. Like it's as long as it's not like something stupid.
Like, that's the big worry, I think, as a DM too, is you're like, you want the player deaths to be meaningful and awesome. You never want them to die to like just a random pack of wolves on the road.
Right.
Even though a lot of people like to play that way.
Traps or environmental damage.
Yeah.
Like that would suck.
People still like to play D&D like a roguelike, where it's like anything can happen, all bets are on, and there's no quick load or something.
Right.
We play a little bit differently, where it's everybody's got a little bit of plot armor maybe, but I do think it still needs to be on the table in some way.
Yeah, I agree. I think I'd be all right with it. I don't know if
Yeah.
everybody else would. If
Yeah.
like their characters just straight up dying in a scenario.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. In this would be like somebody catching a spear as we're doing the chase sequence and
Right.
them just falling to the hordes as we all run.
Yeah, that wouldn't have been
I think I'd be all right with it though.
Yeah. But here, yeah, especially if you can give yourself like some kind of last out, or maybe even you can do something special, like, oh, you have one last action, you can do something and make it a cool, like, go out. Then I think it would all feel better about it if that happened. But
right, yeah.
I think it needs to be on the table.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, it's not looking so good.
No, it's not. I got a lot of potions though. If I go down with like 6 potions in my inventory,
would feel pretty bad.
I'm gonna feel pretty bad about that.
Yeah, that's true.
That's just poor planning on my part if that happens.
All right, I think that will do it for this chat from the deep. Thank you to Chris. Thank you to all the wonderful fans for watching, and we will see you all next week.
See you then. Or will we? Oh, yes, we will.
I hope so.
I'm thinking of Baldur's Gate on Sunday. Never mind.
Oh yeah, no Baldur's Gate on Sunday.